microphone, and welcome to this Government Resource meeting for 8th of March 2023. There's no notification on the evacuation results tonight, so please go to the car park if you hear any alarms going off. Moving on to item number 1, apologies. Angela.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy, Councillor Purdy, Councillor Sutton, Councillor Clues, Councillor Flitter, Councillor Hughes substituting Councillor Flitter, Councillor Ratcliffe, Councillor Swindle, and Councillor Archer may be able to come.
Okay. Don't attack him, you're all right. Don't attack him, you're all right. Item number 2, approval of the minutes held on the 16th of February. Propose it. All those in favour? I saw Vinci. All right. Those have been approved. Public participation, Angela, anybody? No? No.
No public participation.
Okay. Any interest? No. No questions, I presume? No. Okay, we'll move on to the main part of the agenda then. Item number 6, proposed new employment policy, substance misuse.
Yes, thank you, Chair. That's me. So this is a proposed new employment policy on substance misuse. We're actually one of the few councils in Derbyshire that don't have a policy of this type, and indeed the trade union rep saw him this morning and he said he was very surprised that we don't have such a policy. We're not proposing that we have this policy because we have a problem. What we're proposing is to have this policy in order to set standards for health and safety in the workplace and for reputational reasons as well. But also because substance misuse is becoming more prevalent in society, so we might have to cross this bridge in the future. It's a very important health and safety matter that staff should present themselves for work fit and well to look after their own health and safety, that of colleagues, that of customers, residents, service users. So if somebody is under the influence of any substance which affects their mood or consciousness, I say it can have very serious implications if they're driving a vehicle, operating machinery, taking business decisions, giving advice to the public. So that just about covers all employees, actually. So it's applicable to everybody. And if a manager feels that potentially somebody is under the influence of substance at work, then the policy advises they have to deal with that very sensitively initially, because actually some of these symptoms in Appendix 1 could be for other
giving
medical
advice
reasons.
To the public.
So they do need to
so that
tread
just about covers all
when
employees,
starting
actually.
a conversation.
So it's applicable to everybody.
But where they feel
and if a
actually
manager
there is misconduct
feels
here,
that potentially
then it would be independently investigated, as all our disciplinary matters are, before a decision's taken for it indeed to go through a disciplinary process if it's required. However, the policy is also balanced, hopefully, you'll see that, in that if somebody comes forward to say they have a dependency issue, then we're here to help. We've got a fantastic occupational health service, and if people would like to come forward and say, actually, could you help me, then we're here to support and help. And that support will be very much part of the launch of the policy, that balance between, OK, if we have a conduct issue, we'll deal with it under disciplinary matters. If somebody comes forward for help, then we're here to help. The policy has been through full staff consultation, as you'd expect. It's been to a joint consultative group, and they recommended that this committee adopt the policy. So thank you.
Any questions for Deborah?
Chair, I'm happy to move the report. Deborah came to the joint consultative group, answered a lot of questions from members at that meeting, and I think we were all very pleased to see that there would be support in place for members. So, yeah.
Councillor Hughes.
Chair, yes, I'd like to second this report. I thought the policy was enlightened, very enlightened, and a model for what could be done with substance abuse. And I think that goes really for personnel functions. I mean, at yesterday's meeting, when we were we had a meeting looking at clean and green, and again the the input from the personnel at that meeting was fantastic and really demonstrated an enlightened method of treating employees, I think.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Any more comment? I'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, internal audit plan. Would you? Oh, it's Jenny, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to present our proposed internal audit plan for 23-24. As the committee's previously been made aware, we have had some staffing recruiting difficulties in internal audit, and that has meant that the majority of the 22-23 audit plan hasn't actually been completed. So as a result, in preparing the plan for 23-24, we've basically carried forward the 22-23 plan after making sure there isn't other areas that have increased in risk. So we have added climate change to that, as that's a very topical area at the moment. We are currently underway trying to recruit for a senior auditor. We did actually make an appointment in December, but unfortunately the applicant's circumstances changed and they were no longer able to undertake that role. So we are advertising again. That closes the end of March, and hopefully we'll be successful then. It does mean that for the 23-24 plan, we will have to focus on high and medium priority risk areas. And if we can get someone in post sort of fairly promptly, that will give me the ability to provide an audit opinion at the end of the year. So the proposed plan is at Appendix 1. That shows you what areas we've covered in the last 2 years, what we hope to cover in 23-24, and then if all goes well, what we would cover in 24-25, although we'd obviously review 24-25 when we came to that to make sure it was still relevant. The last column in the table, that identifies the main risks. So you'll notice that the remit of audit has evolved over the years, and there's much more emphasis on governance and risk and not just finance. And that's why, as well as all the main financial systems, you can see that there's a lot of other areas we cover, such as data protection, homelessness, health and safety, you name it. If the council does it, we audit it. So it should be noted that the plan will need adjusting if there are any emerging higher risk areas, or if our latest recruitment drive is unsuccessful. But the recommendation is that the draft before you is agreed. Thank you.
Question for Jenny? Councillor Ball?
Yes. Well, thank you, Jenny, again for this. I'm just a bit concerned because each time we keep coming with this, we are trying to gain auditors, and it isn't seeming to be an easy situation. And now we're like going backward on ourselves just to say that we've covered what we did in 21-22 roughly. But when you're saying about there might be the chance of higher risk things that come to mind, who's going to pick them up if we haven't actually got those people in place to be doing that in the first place? Sorry.
Well, we are hopeful this time that this recruitment will be successful because we've applied a market supplement to it, and we've also applied a £2,000 welcome payment, and we have had some people calling up about it. Jenny mentioned that we had offered the position to somebody. He was due to start at the beginning of February, but his circumstances changed and he couldn't move to the area. But he did contact me last week to say he might be moving into the area over the summer. So I've told him he can apply, and we might consider that in the round. But ideally, I'd like somebody before the summer. But we are hopeful. From the inquiries we're getting so far, it looks as if we should be more successful. Certainly in financial services, where we've had vacancies, including one senior accountant post that was vacant from November 2021. Yeah, that post has just been filled and a new person started this week, and we've had a principal accountant start today.
So the calibre of applicants in financial services certainly went up when we added the market supplement and the welcome payment.
David.
Thanks, Chair. I think Jenny, that it's fair to say that members are sympathetic to your situation and the burden that's put on you because of the situation. It's the same everywhere. I mean, I go to meetings at a national park which cover exactly the same circumstances and the difficulty in recruitment that's occurred and is occurring these days. So just thank you for doing what you've done under stressful conditions.
Okay, no more questions. We go to debate. No debate. Can somebody propose it? Councillor Froggatt? Seconder? Councillor Lees? Unanimous. We're doing well, Ange. And you, Karen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the report before you is asking you to approve the accounting policies for 2022-23. It's good practice for us to come to you in March before we actually start producing the accounts, so that you set the policies that we use to then prepare the accounts. So the accounting policies before you are almost identical to those for 21-22. The only changes that have been made are two changes on pages 54 and 55 that are shown in red, and they reflect a change in regulations with regard to depreciation. So other than that, we're not proposing changing anything. We'll be coming back. The accounts deadline is the 31st of May this year, which will be a challenge, but hopefully we'll be reporting that in July when the committees start again.
Any questions for Karen? No debate? Oh, Councillor.
It seems here that we have a bus station which is expected to last 50 years. Is that right? Do we actually plan that sort of level in our grants?
I think the way that it works is when the valuer looks at each individual property to value it for the accounts, they also give it an estimated life. So in terms of that, they'll be looking at structure and how long it's going to last for. I presume that is looking at the shell rather than what's inside it, but I wouldn't know the detail. I wouldn't know that, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, the estates team are the valuers, so they just provide the accountancy and finance team with the amounts and the lives, and then they calculate the relevant depreciation.
Councillor Hughes, sorry. Carry on.
Okay, thank you, Chair. On the second red bit, I'm just make sure I'm reading this correctly. When an asset reaches nil value, then it's taken off the asset register. That's what that paragraph means, is it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking it could possibly be read the other way around, that when an asset is derecognised, it becomes nil value, and therefore you'd have to have a right. I suppose it's the same thing. You'd have to have a write-off, though, wouldn't you?
Yes, we do need to make an adjustment for gains or losses.
Yeah.
Okay. Move to debate. Councillor Hobson.
Yeah, I'm happy to move the report. Thank you, Karen. As you say, this is good practice to present these accounting policies before the full year accounts is made, with just a few changes. So happy to move it, Chair.
Is that fine, a seconder? Councillor Hughes?
So I'm happy to second. Can I just ask another question as well?
You can,
In terms of the infrastructure asset, it's straight line depreciation. What form of depreciation was used before that?
I'll have to
just,
come back to you
curious.
on that one
Okay, I
because
was
I've
just
not
curious.
dealt with it at that
Yeah.
level of detail.
Okay, all right. That's good.
That's been proposed. All those in favour? Announce again. We're doing well. Moving on. Item number 9. Raise for write-off 23-24. Karen?
Thank you, Chair. So you've got a report before you about write-offs. Most of the write-offs this year have been under £10,000, so I've written those off under delegated authority, but the amounts are shown for information. I have written off a further one today, some more that added up to just over £5,000. They're not reflected in this report. They were sundry debtors. There are 3 outstanding amounts over £10,000 each listed in Appendix 1, and I'm asking for your approval to write those off. All endeavours have been made to obtain payment for these amounts, but that's been unsuccessful. Where a company's been dissolved or there's a IVA in place, there's very little that we can do, so that's 2 of them. And the third one we've been unable to trace, and in any case we suspect that should never have been in rating. So I'm asking you to approve those 3 write-offs totalling £42,612 and 5 pence. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. You've just briefly alluded to it, Karen. This one, I was going to query 2012 to 2017, the fact that we've not chased it up and, over this period of time. And obviously you can't talk about a specific place, but could you give a bit more background, please, as to the circumstances, if you are able to?
Yeah, I asked about this one because it was so unusual. But apparently it was some sort of workshop, but it was quite derelict and hadn't been used for a long time. So they asked the valuation office agency to go and have a look at it, and they took it out of rating, but they could only backdate to 2017 by the regulations. So that backdating doesn't show as a write-off. It shows as an adjustment to the business rates. But there were debts arising for the prior period from 2012 to 2017, and that's what this is. So if we weren't bound by the sort of cap on how far you can backdate, it would have all been taken out. But to get rid of it, the only way we can do it now is by write-off.
Go to Chapman.
Thanks, Chair. I think it's right to offer our congratulations to Karen on the council tax and non-domestic rates collected, because everything's hit target, and we've got everything but 3's hit target, and even those 3 are very close. So that's well done, Karen.
I can't take the credit for that one. It's entirely due to Chesterfield Borough Council and colleagues in business rates and council tax, but I'll pass that on. Thank you.
Okay, it's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Unanimous again.
So I'll propose.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
It has been proposed now.
You jumped the gun. You're desperate to get home. I don't. Sorry.
The last meeting. All those in favour? Unanimous. Item number 10, Treasury Management Mid-Year Report 22-23.
Thank you, Chair. So this report, as it says, is the mid-year report. It reports on Treasury management activities from April to September 2022, compared against the Council's Treasury management strategy that sets out parameters and limits. So Table 2 of the report gives you an indication of the investment activity and borrowing activity. So Table 2 shows that we've got borrowing of £5.45 million. That's a loan from the Public Works Loans Board that was taken out round about 2010, 2011 to fund the construction of Art Leisure Matlock and improvements to public toilets. It is at a fixed rate of interest, and it's due to mature in, I think, 2056. The investments lower down that total £31.5 million, they are where we lend surplus cash. So because we're the billing authority and we collect council tax and business rates on behalf of other authorities, we usually have surplus cash where we sort of collect in advance and then later pass over the money. So we invest that on the markets, and up until now rates on that have been quite low. We've not been getting much interest, but rates have risen recently. You'll see in the financial implications in section 7 of the report that the council has generated £141,000 more than budgeted in investment income so far during 22-23. So that's been good news. Table 4 tells you a little bit more about the investments and which organisations we place them with. So there's a mixture of investments there, and the Treasury Management Strategy sets out the total investment that we can place with any one organisation or with any category, and we've stayed within that. On Table 4, the biggest movement and the biggest part of our investments, 8.5 million at the 30th of September, was placed with the Debt Management Office. Now, the Debt Management Office is an agency sponsored by HM Treasury. It's a government agency. So it's a very safe place to invest our funds, especially when the markets are volatile and there's a high risk. You'll probably remember I've said before that we look at security ahead of liquidity and then yield. So we'll always aim to place the money where it's safe rather than where it'll get a higher rate of interest, although we do try to get the best interest rate we can. Paragraph 2.3.14 talks about the DMADF. That essentially is the same as the Debt Management Office. It's part of the Debt Management Office. And you can see there that interest rates have fluctuated during the year and have been going up. I think the only other comment I wanted to make was about Table 5, and this one of the key things this shows is the credit ratings and the risks that we look at when we do place money. So we look at credit ratings, but we also look at bail-in exposure. Bail-in was something that was introduced by the government to protect the taxpayer from having to bail out banks. You'll remember when Northern Rock, I think it was, failed, and it took a lot of taxpayer money to support that. Well, after that, the government changed the legislation, and part of the burden is now placed on investors. So if we invest in certain institutions, mainly the high street banks, and they fail, then we won't get back 100% of our investment, because part of the investment will be used to pay creditors. And we've managed to, by using our strategy, we've managed to reduce the bail-in exposure from 92% at the end of March to 58% at the end of September. So that's good news. And Section 2.4 of the report shows the compliance against the Council's Treasury Management Strategy, and I'm pleased to say that there was full compliance against the limits set out in the strategy. Section 2.5 sets out the Treasury Management Indicators. You can see on the section on liquidity that there was a failure to comply with the indicator for total cash available within 3 months. But as the report points out, it didn't make a great deal of difference to our cash available. We still had £23 million cash available, which is deemed sufficient. And that indicator was reduced was changed in the Treasury Management Strategy approved by Council last week. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Questions, Dave? Gary Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Karen, can I just bring up what I brought up this afternoon with you on Birmingham City Council, and that we are putting all our local authority investment is with Birmingham One Council, and that council has been in the news for not being able to balance its budget. I know it has balanced its budget for this year, but I'm just a bit nervous of we've put all our money into one council rather than perhaps spread it over a number, and therefore spread our risk.
Yes, as I explained in my reply to you, we have a facility with our advisors, Arling Close, whereby whenever we're going to make an investment, we can look up what Arling Close's view is of that organisation. So they look out constantly for things like councils issuing Section 114 notices, and also, where they look at credit ratings such as Moody's and Fitch and so on. And if those change, especially to the negative, they very quickly tell us and send out an email saying, don't invest with this organisation. So they might say a straight, don't place any funds here for the time being. Or they might say you can place money with these organisations, but you should limit it to 100 days or to 3 months, 6 months, whatever. So by doing that, they're best placed to give that advice better than we are. And hopefully that mitigates some of the losses. I do take your point about, perhaps putting 3 million with one local authority might seem excessive. I haven't had a chance to look to see if that debt has now been repaid. It might have been that investment. But sometimes it's very difficult to find local authorities who want to borrow, because a lot of them are in the same situation as we are. So it might have been that at that particular time they couldn't find someone. And as I said also in my reply to you, some of these investments, they might only be for one night or 1 week. So perhaps in future, with this table or with one of the tables, it might be useful, first of all, to show you the interest rate we're getting for each one of these, and secondly, to say whether the period of the loan and whether it's still there. So I might change that next time.
Got any more questions? I'll move to debate. No debate. Councillor Hobson.
I'm happy to move the report. I'd like to thank Karen for all her extremely hard work on this, and on International Women's Day, pay tribute to her. She's been in post a while and doing a marvellous job, and we all, respect her prudent advice. Thank you.
Here, here. Right, find a second. Councillor Ball.
Yes, I will echo what Councillor Hobson has just said. I think this council would be in dire straits if we hadn't got the likes of Karen working for us. I really do believe that. She's very prudent in what she does, and there's great explanations for whatever she puts out in the reports. And she will listen to what we have to say, and she gives it us back. So, yeah, I do commend what she's done. Thank you.
I second that, Steve.
Yeah. Yes, second.
That's been duly seconded. All those in favour? Unanimous again. We're flying. Okay, item 11, decarbonisation of the Arc Leisure Centre, Matlock and Workforce Leisure Centre.
Thank you, Chair. Pleased to bring this report before you this evening. It details an opportunity for the Council to accept a grant offer of just over £1.9 million to decarbonise the Arc Leisure Centre at Matlock and Worksworth Leisure Centre. It offers us the opportunity to make significant progress towards our net zero objectives, specifically in relation to our Scope 3 emissions. This This application is our third successful application to the public sector decarbonisation scheme, following the phase 1 bid to decarbonise Ashbourne Leisure Centre and the bid that takes in the Town Hall and ABC. The acceptance of the grant offer, as all grant offers, is subject to certain conditions. The most pertinent of that is the contribution of a minimum of 12% like-for-like funding. The details of that are in paragraph 2.3, but that's essentially the funding that we would be expected to contribute should we be replacing the end-of-life heating system ourselves. So in this case, given the project value, that figure is £264,000. As detailed in paragraph 2.4, Freedom Leisure are contractually responsible for the maintenance and replacement of the heating system at the leisure centres. However, they have been approached twice to ask whether they feel able to make the contribution, and unfortunately, due to the financial climate, the cost of energy, etc., they're unable to make the contribution at this time. So whilst we're only too aware of the ongoing contractual discussions with Freedom, as I'm sure you are all only too aware of, and those discussions may include how we deal with the associated revenue benefit of the decarbonisation, which, albeit small, does provide some net financial benefit in terms of the energy bills. This, unfortunately, in terms of acceptance of the grant offer, isn't a decision that we can defer. The grant offers come with a very short turnaround time of 10 days, which is unrealistic, unfortunately, but it's the parameters in which we work. So we've had to request an extension to that in order for us to be able to bring it to both this committee and for the decision to be approved at council on the 16th. I would just add finally that obviously this represents an opportunity for us to not only reduce emissions at the centres, which is something that we have committed to doing as the council, but it obviously also offers us the opportunity to invest in the fabric of those buildings and into the heating systems there for the long-term benefit of all.
Questions for Joanne? Neil.
Better off financially or better off in carbon terms? We haven't modelled revenue benefits beyond what you see before you in terms of the kind of technical and financial surveys that have taken place, and they have been undertaken in line with the criteria of the grant funding. So there's a certain threshold that we needed to kind of take advantage in terms of the grant funding. That's basically proportionate to the amount of CO2 that the installed measures can save. So that's what the application was based around. In terms of could we spend more to save more, the answer is probably yes, possibly yes, but obviously we'd have to model that out. I think one of the things that we're mindful of is making sure that we are not replacing equipment that isn't at end of life, because obviously that's not prudent. So the application here was made for the kit at Wirksworth and the Ark that we consider to be at end of life, and indeed that was one of the criteria of the application. So we know, for example, at the Ark we've got the combined heat and power plant that has a couple more years to run, and what we're trying to do is future-proof the solution so that when that does reach end of life, we can take some of the heat load from that into the technology that we're planning to install. So we are trying to think with that in mind, but within the constraints of the grant funding.
Councillor Hughes.
Which is where I was, where I was going. So we will be able to this on. We should be able to plan ahead with the actual layout and what it is we're doing for the longer term.
Yeah, that's
Right.
certainly the intent. So I think it's covered in paragraph 3.2. So yeah, the new system's been future-proof so that when the existing CHP reaches end of life in 2 to 5 years, we can add a further heat pump module. So what we're trying to do is make sure that what we do now means that we can do what we need to do in the future in simple terms.
I missed that, sorry.
That's all right.
Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just really following on from Neil's question. Well, before we do that, first of all, can the DNO take 100 kilowatt output if has it been designed with the DNO in?
Yes, so part of the heat decarbonisation plans that we're developing for both sites are those DNO conversations.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily without the necessity to upgrade, but those conversations are being had. That's part of the technical feasibility.
So at the moment, it wouldn't require an upgrade to their facilities
For the Ark.
For the Ark, or
for the solar array that we're proposing, no.
Okay.
In terms of potential export.
Right.
Because we'd utilise most of it on site.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay. Even in the summer?
Yeah.
Right. And then, so that brings me to my second question, which is if we put another heat pump in, we'll need more solar power. Potentially,
yeah. We know that we have more roof space than we're proposing to use. What we're proposing to do is put it on the sports hall roof, which is the flat roof effectively, not the arced roof, because that's obviously less impactful. There is obviously more roof space available, and it's something that we have considered and will continue to consider, including the option potentially, if we can't fund it through this, talking to community energy projects about whether they could potentially fund those installs.
Right. Okay. And could that extend to the car parks as well? So that because there is a substantial area of car park there that could be covered. And then the question then is, does the DNO still have capacity for the additional?
And I can't answer that one. I mean, I think, anything is possible and those conversations could be had. I think at the minute, as I said at the beginning, we're limited by the parameters of the grant funding, which certainly don't stretch to that. But, those are opportunities that hopefully we'll be able to consider in the future.
But you're talking to DDCE?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Mine's a comment, Chair. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay, carry on.
This is a comment rather than a question. I think I almost heard the sharp intake of breath from Karen when you mentioned if we spend more to make more, Neil. But I think, guys, you're just moving away from what we're here to agree tonight. And I know the waters have been muddied by what's going on with Freedom Leisure. But I think it's still important that we take this step because we're not going to knock the Ark down, whatever happens. Something will continue to be carried out there. So we have to take this opportunity for decarbonisation. It's what's expected by Derbyshire Dales of their district council to move in this direction. It's what we've set up the working group for, and it's what I'm sure all my fellow members will condone. The one point that I've made in a number of occasions at workshops and pre-meetings is that the savings we're making for these leisure centres, and particularly in the case of the Ark, which we will probably fund completely, we ought to have some way of taking advantage of that net gain. So if that can be, I guess that's got to be approved at full council. But if we can make some conditions that we will through our investment, we will be able to share in that financial gain.
Councillor Ball.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, I agree with the principle of us getting the grant as we can, but the question because we're in the situation with Freedom Leisure, has the council got the money to cover the 12% from our benefit so that we get that? And then obviously what Councillor Chapman is saying, that obviously we want to see some feedback, because where you stated that it was up to Freedom Leisure to put this money in officially because they run it. But if we're doing it, then obviously we want to see the benefit coming back this way. So have we got those in proportion?
I think to answer your first question, and Karen, I'm sure will give me a nudge if that's not correct. Yes, that money is available. The like-for-like contribution is available. To answer your second question, we haven't had that discussion with Freedom yet. I would expect they're expecting it, because they know that this conversation is ongoing, and it's obviously something that we're involving Ash and Becky in as contract managers as part of the wider discussion.
Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I'd just like to say that the possibility of those discussions with the Freedom Leisure are in the report at the end, and so it's conditional that we're approving that in addition to the funding. So at some point there'll have to be negotiation with Freedom Leisure according to the report. That's all.
No more questions? Move to debate. No debate. Can I find a proposer? Second it. All those in favour? Or before we depart, may I, from the chair, thank everybody, my colleagues and the officers, especially Karen, which I've really enjoyed working with, and it's my last meeting, and she's been brilliant. It's been an experience, was it? And also to Tommy and to Angela and all these. I wish there were a few more here tonight, but anyway, it's been a pleasure to be sitting here, and thank you for your input and thank you for your help. We might see you all next year. You never know yet.